I'm Olivia, and this is American Dream Route. If you're receiving Social Security right now, or you're getting close to retirement and expect to file soon, you should pay very close attention to what has been unfolding in the U.S. Senate over the last several months, because the Social Security legislative push in 2025 and heading into 2026 has been more active than anything many retirees have witnessed in a long time. Some updates have already been enacted, others are still moving through Congress with real traction, and all of them can affect how much money arrives in your account each month. This is not partisan guesswork. These are actual proposals, actual roll call votes, and real policy changes. And I'm going to break each one down in clear, everyday language so that by the end, you understand what has already changed, what is still under negotiation, and what practical steps you can take now to protect and potentially increase the benefits you spent your working life earning. Let's begin with a basic point that matters, because far too often people in Washington discuss Social Security in a way that feels disconnected from real life. Social Security is not a giveaway. It is not charity. It is not a favor. It is an earned benefit built on a long-standing agreement. For generations, American workers paid into this system from every paycheck. The deductions happened before they ever held the money. There was no opt-out. People contributed in strong economies and weak ones, through downturns and recoveries, through war years and public health emergencies. And the promise was simple: when retirement comes, the system will be there. For millions of older Americans, that commitment is the line between stability and hardship. Using census-based analysis cited by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, without Social Security, roughly 37% of Americans age 65 and older would be below the poverty line. With Social Security, that share drops to under 9%. That's not a number to breeze past. It's a clear reminder of how central this program is to everyday life for older adults. And yet, year after year, many retirees have felt their dollars stretch less. They've watched grocery costs climb, prescription prices rise, and housing become more burdensome, while their Social Security checks often struggled to keep up. The increases they do receive, what the government calls cost of living adjustments, or COLA, are based on a formula that many economists and senior advocates have argued for years does not reflect how retirees actually spend. Here's the central issue. The formula the federal government uses for COLA is tied to CPI-W, the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. It measures inflation based on the spending patterns of people who are still working. But working-age households spend differently than retirees. Workers devote a larger share to commuting, electronics, and other categories that don't weigh as heavily for many seniors. Retirees, by contrast, spend a larger portion on healthcare, prescription medications, and housing. And healthcare costs, as seniors across the country can tell you from personal experience, have increased faster than overall inflation for many years. So this is what happens. COLA is calculated using a yardstick that gives less weight to the categories where seniors spend the most and more weight to categories many retirees spend less on. The result is that the yearly increase can fall short of the real cost of living for older Americans, and the gap can widen over time. Research highlighted by groups like the Senior Citizens League has argued that this long-term mismatch has steadily reduced purchasing power over the past 2 decades. For 2026, one widely cited official COLA figure is 2.8%, which works out to about $56 per month for the average retired worker, bringing the typical monthly benefit to roughly $2,071. At the same time, Medicare Part B premiums reportedly rose by about $22.90 per month, a 9.7% increase, which can absorb a meaningful portion of the COLA before many beneficiaries feel it. This is the frustrating cycle seniors have described for years, and it's exactly the pattern several Senate proposals are trying to change. The first major legislative development is one that has already been signed into law, and if you're a retired public servant, it may be directly relevant. A measure commonly referred to as the Social Security Fairness Act was signed on January 5, 2025. This law removed 2 provisions that for decades reduced benefits for millions of retired public workers: the windfall elimination provision, known as WEP, and the government pension offset, known as GPO. These rules affected roughly 3 million people, including retired teachers, firefighters, police officers, and other public employees in many states who spent parts of their careers in jobs with separate pension systems while also working in Social Security covered employment. Under the old approach, the benefit formulas could reduce what certain workers received in ways that many felt did not fairly reflect what they paid into Social Security. For example, a retired teacher in Ohio or Texas who worked additional Social Security covered jobs and paid payroll taxes on that income could still see their Social Security benefit reduced for reasons that felt disconnected from their contributions. The Fairness Act ended that structure. As described in public summaries, the change was made retroactive to January 2024, with December 2023 as the last month WEP and GPO applied. By March 2026, the Social Security Administration reported processing more than 3.1 million retroactive payments totaling about $17 billion, with an average back payment around $6,710 per person. Even so, the rollout has not been perfect. Reporting in March 2026, including coverage noted by government executive, indicated some retirees were still waiting for fully recalculated ongoing benefits more than a year after enactment. If you believe you're affected and haven't seen your adjustment, it's wise to contact the Social Security Administration directly and ask for a status update. The second major development involves legislation still moving through the Senate that would change the COLA calculation itself. The most discussed example is the Boosting Benefits and COLA for Seniors Act, introduced as Senate Bill 3529 in October 2025. This proposal would replace CPI-W with CPI-E, the Consumer Price Index for the elderly. CPI-E is designed to better reflect how older Americans spend, giving greater weight to healthcare, prescription drugs, and housing. Advocacy groups argue that if CPI-E had been used for many years instead of CPI-W, many retirees would likely be receiving higher monthly checks today. It's important to be precise about the status here. As of April 2026, the Boosting Benefits and COLA for Seniors Act has been introduced but has not been enacted. It remains a proposal, not settled law. Still, the attention it's getting and the introduction of related measures in both chambers, including broader ideas such as the Social Security Expansion Act, Senate Bill 770, introduced in February 2025, shows that pressure around COLA reform has reached a point Congress is finding harder to dismiss. Seniors and advocacy organizations, including AARP, the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, and grassroots groups representing retired educators, public workers, and military communities, have kept the pressure steady through calls, letters, town halls, and coordinated campaigns. That sustained engagement has changed how lawmakers in both parties weigh the issue. The third major area is long-term solvency, and this is where the discussion becomes more difficult, but also absolutely necessary. Social Security's trust funds continue to face increasing financial strain. In February 2026, the Congressional Budget Office released updated projections indicating the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund could be depleted by 2032, which was earlier than some prior estimates. The Social Security trustees' most recent report has cited 2033. Those aren't identical dates, but they are close, and the trend is not reassuring. It's crucial to understand what depletion means and what it does not mean. It does not mean Social Security vanishes. Payroll tax revenue would still come in. However, under current law, if reserves are exhausted, benefits would have to be reduced to match incoming revenue. The CBO has estimated that could mean across-the-board reductions in the range of roughly 21% to 28%. For someone receiving $2,000 per month, that could translate to about $400 to $560 less each month. On a fixed income, that kind of reduction can mean falling behind on utilities, struggling with rent, or skipping needed medications. That's why the solvency debate matters so much, and why some of the most intense political battles are happening right now. One of the most frequently discussed options is raising the cap on earnings that are subject to Social Security payroll taxes. In 2026, the taxable maximum is $184,500. That means someone earning $500,000 pays the same dollar amount of Social Security payroll taxes as someone earning $184,500 because income above the cap isn't taxed for Social Security. Many advocates and several proposals in Congress, including versions of the Social Security Expansion Act, have suggested applying payroll taxes to earnings above $400,000 or removing the cap entirely. Supporters argue this would bring in significant revenue and could extend solvency for decades without cutting benefits. Critics argue it would be a major tax increase for high earners. The debate is still active, but the urgency and seriousness around it represent meaningful movement compared to years when this issue was largely kicked down the road. Now let's get practical about what this means for you. If you're already receiving Social Security, the most immediate step is making sure your information with the Social Security Administration is accurate and up to date. Create or log into your My Social Security account at ssa.gov. That portal lets you view your earnings record, benefit details, estimates, and official notices. If you prefer not to handle things online, you can call the SSA at 1-800-772-1213 Monday through Friday, generally 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, or visit a local field office. Review your earnings record carefully and confirm that each year of work is correctly listed. Mistakes happen more often than people expect, and missing or incorrect earnings can reduce benefits. If you find an error, request a correction as soon as possible. If you believe you were affected by WEP or GPO and haven't received a recalculated benefit or retroactive payment, contact the SSA directly. As of early 2026, some cases were still being processed, and bipartisan groups of senators have continued urging the agency to speed up payments and fully apply the retroactive period back to January 2024. If you're approaching retirement and haven't filed yet, the basic claiming rule still matters. For each year you delay beyond full retirement age up to age 70, monthly benefits increase by about 8% per year, or roughly 2/3 of 1% per month. That's a guaranteed, inflation-adjusted increase that's difficult to replicate elsewhere. Whether waiting is right for you depends on your health, immediate income needs, other assets, and your spouse's situation. But the developments we've discussed, especially the possibility of a more senior-focused COLA formula in the future, could make the baseline benefit more valuable over time, which is another factor to consider in your strategy. One topic that doesn't get nearly enough attention is how these choices affect spousal and survivor benefits. When one spouse dies, the surviving spouse generally receives the higher of the two benefits the couple was receiving. That means claiming decisions aren't only personal. They can shape your partner's income for years. With policy changes being implemented and debated right now, it's more important than ever for couples to plan together, ideally with guidance from someone who understands both the current rules and the reforms being discussed. Let's also be straightforward about something else. Seniors didn't get progress by waiting quietly. The Social Security Fairness Act didn't pass because lawmakers suddenly decided to be generous. It passed because affected retirees and advocates organized, called offices, wrote letters, attended town halls, and made the issue impossible to ignore. The momentum behind COLA reform and solvency solutions exists for the same reason. Older Americans vote in large numbers across party lines, and when they act together, they are a powerful political force. Every retiree who reached out, showed up, or supported organized efforts helped create the landscape we're seeing now. There's one more piece that deserves attention. Many seniors worry not only about their own checks, but about their children and grandchildren, and whether Social Security will be there for them. Trust fund projections can sound alarming, and they should be taken seriously. But it's also true that Social Security has faced serious solvency challenges before, especially in the early 1980s, and Congress acted to stabilize the system. If today's push results in meaningful revenue reform, it could extend the program for decades. Protecting Social Security for current retirees and for future generations is part of what makes this moment so important. Here's the bottom line. Real changes have occurred. WEP and GPO have been eliminated under the Fairness Act. Retroactive payments totaling about $17 billion have been issued. The 2026 COLA of 2.8% is in place. And multiple proposals to reform COLA and address long-term solvency are moving through Congress with more attention than similar ideas have received in years. Not everything is settled. Challenges remain, but the direction has shifted, the momentum is real, and engaged seniors are a major reason it's happening. You worked your entire life for these benefits. You earned them through decades of labor and consistent contributions, staying informed, verifying details through official sources, and sharing accurate updates with the people you care about helps protect a program that millions of Americans depend on every single month.